Hello, everyone. We are back with another episode of the Unfoolish Podcast. And this week we have all three of us here, and Raymond, on his return, has actually suggested the topic. So, why don't you introduce it?
So boys, I don't know. I wanted to bring up the topic on masculinity, and like the concept, maybe the idea of it, the general. It's like societal norms of masculinities. I brought this up because I'm doing research for like about it for one of my classes. I watched a few documentaries, so I just thought it was really interesting because it's not really talked about as often. I feel like it's definitely overlooked, and it's definitely more normalized than it should be.
Masculinity?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see it.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I see
Let's
the vision.
start there.
Okay. That's a good question, George.
Yeah.
You know,
What about masculinity is so normalized?
well, you see, George, because I'm such a what do you call it? Knowledgeable person on masculinity.
Such a scholar.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, there's concepts of masculinities. So, I guess what's typically related to the term masculinity, or masculine in general. And like what I guess like the consequences or like the harm it causes for a lot of people, right?
Okay.
So like, like what do you mean by your question? Like what do I mean?
Yeah, so what about masculinity is so normalized?
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
it's just like the common traits, right?
Okay.
That we see a lot, right? So like the traits, the idea of it, I guess, it's the expectations of masculinity,
Okay.
and yeah, in general.
Yeah, like
That-
boys aren't
yeah.
expected to cry because it's not seen as masculine, like that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So those things, right?
So
Yeah.
About that, right? How strong
Yeah.
do you guys feel that exists right now? That type of pressure or that type of idea?
Oh, I think it depends so much on the environment, man. Because
Yeah,
there's like, for example, if you think about your own friends group, and I feel like Vancouver's a good place to kind of have an example, because I feel like it's just like the West in general, like Western, like kind of like more liberal parts of of Canada and the U.S. That's when you can find communities in both ends of the spectrum. You can find like the fucking hillbilly, super conservative, fucking Abbotsford looking motherfuckers who and we just chatted
Yeah,
about
country
Nickelbacks is the
eyes.
first thing that came to mind. You know what I mean? It's like right.
All right.
this guy.
And they'll have like, some of them are like cultishly Christian, like they full send Christianity, like, oh, the woman is supposed to bear children for the men, they're supposed to stay at home and do this and that, like, and it's like next level. And then in those circumstances you often find like very strong masculine ideals kind of like emphasized, like way too strongly, like literally like, oh boy, like they'll explicitly tell their children like, boys don't cry, shit like that. Or
Wow.
or like if a kid did want to play with some Barbie dolls, or I don't know, but
You don't like
for example,
Barbie
they never.
dolls?
I mean, I
Whoa.
personally am not into Barbie dolls, man. It's, you know
Bro.
what I mean?
I'm
action
not
figures
into
are
Barbie
sad,
dolls now, but I'm just saying, like,
but like,
Bro,
my
dolls
guy,
are dolls, man.
Yeah.
Like figurines are figurines. What do you
figurine.
say?
Like I had figurines, and I just cannot imagine. How could anybody prefer Barbie? Even girls, I don't get it. The figurines are just so much better. Either way, but they have that. But then also you have other groups of people where everything's like, like the stereotypical, like super left wing, like I'm changing genders 7 times a week or whatever. you know.
I'm cis white male. I am privileged. I bow to black people, and I apologize for my ancestors and their doings. I'm part of the racial system here in America. Yeah.
Yeah, so like in those settings,
Yeah.
you wouldn't really see those masculine traits like normalized or like enforced or encouraged in overt ways. You know, I don't doubt that there's probably like some, like even in those circles, I'm sure there's moments where that sort of like dynamic comes up where there's like a dynamic between masculinity and femininity, even in those concepts, even if you but like but my point is like it depends so much on where you are, because like if you could be in a social setting where it's not really a factor at all, it's just pretty normal and it's kind of like in the background, like surely it's always there to some extent just based off of our biology. But then you could be in another part of the world or in a different culture where it's like super emphasizing it's a big deal and it's like a big part of like your daily life the whole day, like your masculinity, right?
Right. Yeah. But the thing is, like, that's one concept of masculinity, like what you're describing there. And also kind of like what I was asking about. Just
I was kind of talking about like the gender roles kind of associated with masculinity, right? Like there's an ideal of like what a masculine man should be, and I think that's sort of what. But
that isn't a consistent thing.
I mean, obviously it changes throughout cultures, but there's always like an ideal
and time.
It does. It does.
I mean, well, okay.
But there's always that pressure there to match whatever the society is like saying is masculine, right? There's an idea of like every culture has like an image of what the men should be.
Right, but the thing is like, okay, I'm never a good example in these situations because I actively get away from, you know, biological impulses and social pressures. So, you know, these type of things, I'm just not going to be a good example of. But I'm saying, like, I don't really feel that in my everyday life, in like any of the places I've actually spent quite a bit of time in Canada, to feel like there's a really strong ideal of, and a very specific ideal of what a man is, right? For example, like I never really felt that like a guy can't cry. Like that's not a social norm from my observation and experience.
In
Even
Canada,
though what you're talking about,
much.
Like some of those social settings, I know those exist, but in my everyday life and just going around in like, you know, the greater Vancouver area, in just any type of like place at like, I don't know, at Popeyes, you know, like, you know, that I don't, you know what I mean? Just like any random
I get that.
setting.
Because like, I mean, I feel like here in the West, it's pretty much optional. Like obviously the people you surround yourself with is a big part of it. Because there are a lot of weirdos that like take it too far. Like I was talking about like the uber Christian, uber conservative, like evangelical people in the South.
I think it has
especially.
to do a lot with the environment, right?
Exactly.
Like nurture.
Like if you go to Texas and shit,
your
with
background,
like some of them really white motherfuckers, like surely it's gonna come up. If you're a little too fruity, they're gonna mention it to you. Like they're gonna bring it up. Like you know. But here in Canada, it's so progressive, and also we've lived mostly in like the cities. We don't really have that much experience living out in the countryside where it's not as multicultural. It's not as like
rural
broad.
Canada is a different thing.
Exactly.
Like, I don't think you'll understand that, but it's a real different, man. It's a real difference.
Yeah. So like I totally see where you're coming from, and I agree because it's not in your face. But I just think we live in one of those places where you can pretty much get by without it being shoved in your face the whole time, right? And then there might be even situations where you'd want to put yourself in that it might get shoved in your face. Like if you start doing online dating and stuff, it might come up. If you're a bit more on the feminine side, you might not be pulling certain girls that you want to pull, right, or something like that. To an extent, right? Like if you're super skinny, twig. I don't know. It's just if you don't fit that image, there's a lot of girls that are kind of looking for something a bit more masculine, right? And that's where you might have to face those pressures if you go into like online dating. That's just an example of I feel like a situation where it might come up in like our everyday lives in Canada, which is more progressive than any other place, to be honest, or most other places. Versus somewhere like if you're in like Afghanistan, bro, like dude,
No,
you
you're
got
done.
nah, bro, you gotta
Well, like,
you gotta try to at least boss up a little bit, unless you're just like some. I mean, I don't know.
yeah.
It's a weird thing, man. Because oh god,
Okay.
dude, it's disgusting, bro. It's crazy.
I'm just gonna talk mainly about, uh, the Western world, right?
Yeah.
Western society, rather than comparing to other cultures and countries, because definitely we know, or like at least I know more about here than what's going on over there. Though I've heard and I've seen things, um, like I've only based my opinions off of other people's experiences rather than my own. So I'm not going to touch on that much. But for here, I do agree, somewhat agree with, I guess like what George is kind of saying, how it's not, you don't really notice, right? Like you don't notice a lot of that, and like you don't notice a lot of, like, I guess like the seeming, like, I guess the ideal qualities, right? Um, I guess like the typical like qualities of what makes someone masculine or not. But I feel like it's also like extremely passive, right? You see it in, like, there's like mediated masculinity, right? Where it's all over the media. You don't notice it because from your perspective, you're so used to it.
Yeah, it's just a
Like,
normal.
exactly. So it's normalized, right? And what's normalized is like it's not going to stand out. So like if you see men's health magazines, right? You definitely see someone who's on roids, right? More likely or not, uh, fucking oiled the fuck up, dude.
Oh yeah, and like
looking,
perfect
looking,
angle for
looking.
pump.
Exactly, right? Like even even in like Calvin Klein like advertisements, like just any like media, um, like digital media, whatever media in general, like Calvin Klein, like they had that Justin Bieber for one of the pose, like modeling and stuff, and
Photoshop.
like, bro,
Yeah.
they photoshopped like his junk, everything, right? So
Classic.
it, like, there's all, yeah, so like there's a lot of these things where it's like, if you don't know like the difference between like what's realistic and what's not, you're gonna buy into that, whether it's passively, right? Or like directly, where you're like, oh my god, like you actively think about it, right? So there's all these things. And in movies, right? Like whether it's from, so like George, you're talking about how time kind of affects it, and environment. Uh, the thing is, like, I guess like the concepts of it has not really changed much over the course of like a few hundred years, I'd say. Maybe like it's changed a bit, but at the same time there's like different types, right, from different periods of times, and it's kind of all similar, to like the broader topic, right? So let's say like bro, like the fucking frontier days, right? Like cowboy days and shit. Like guys are expected, to like duel someone out for like fucking respect, or like if there's a problem, they'll just shoot or punch a guy, like or kill a guy, right? It's so like expected. And then like you kind of have that bringing in like to films and stuff too, right? Like even now, right? Like Clint Eastwood and all those stuff. It's like it's being perpetuated like throughout all these like years, and even now, the thing is, you might not. That's not expected of a guy now to just shoot some guy, right? Depending on the culture, but at the same time, yo, at the same time,
Chicago, man.
oh, yeah, but like at the same time, it all leads to like violence as a way of solving a problem, right? So like it kind of like the idea of like, oh, like a guy is going to use violence to solve any type of issues is being perpetuated, and it's recommended, it's almost encouraged, right? And it's expected, and we do see that a lot, right? Like majority, like over 90% of the crime rates, like of like I guess like anything physical, anything that has to do with like murder, anything, it's all men. Like 90% of it is men, right? And why? So like there was this psychologist who did research on the criminals, right? The prisoners, and like they studied over 100 of them, and they kind of ask like what led to this, like you got school shooters, you got like you got straight up like murder, serial killer, whatever, right? A lot of it leads to childhood trauma, and a lot of it leads to their, like, I guess, like overall, like their questioning of their own masculinity, right? Ever since they were like a kid, they've always been deemed as like weak, like, right, like a fucking pussy, a bitch, like, like all that. And when you're, like that sort of, I guess that sort of anger builds up. Thanks, George. That was kind of hot. That sort of anger builds up over time, and like, and they lose it, right? And their way of retaliating and like proving, I'm a fucking man, like their way of like finally breaking is their way of showing, yo, this is what a real man does, right? And they shoot up schools and shit, right? So like, bro, like it's,
Clip it,
I don't know.
Clip it. He just
I
said
don't
it.
know.
Clip it. Clip it out of context, quick.
He said it. It's true. So that's
Yeah,
what real
man.
men do, Raymond.
That's crazy, bro.
What? Yeah, actually,
That's tough.
now that's a top G, bro. That's a top G. Yeah. So like there are a lot of things, that definitely affects it, and like how masculinity actually affects men in general. Like I'm just gonna list like quick stats for suicide rates, right? Ages like what? Like let me pull up. Let me pull up the stats. Ages 10 to 14, guys 3 times more likely to commit suicide comparison to girls. 15 to 19, 5 times more likely, and 20 to 24, 7 times more likely. So like it only goes up as you age, which I think is crazy, because you would expect, it'll go down, right?
Right. And as someone who's in the media, who's studying that field, right? Like one thing that you definitely notice a lot too is that it definitely seems like people just care a lot more if something happened to a female as opposed to a man, right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot less people care if a man, I don't know, got killed or something like that, for example, or is missing. Like the amount of coverage and the amount of engagement from the audience, especially, which in the current kind of industry, the way it is set up,
Yeah, which is
it's
so weird.
really the
'cause it's
audience that kind of drives the coverage of certain stories a lot of the
Yeah.
times. But you definitely do see that. I mean, especially, not completely related to this, but the huge thing that gets talked about is how white women essentially is what people just care about here in terms of the coverage, right? They, the story of that girl, whoever it was that was missing or whatever over the summer. Like everyone was just huge on that, always just keeping up and following with that. Right, I actually forget her name because I didn't really
Gabby
follow.
Petito? Like,
Right, see,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
like, bro.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was crazy. That was crazy.
Right, but like when it is, for example, indigenous, right? So many stories that
They don't get
doesn't get brought
international
up.
coverage, yeah.
And if it's just like
Yeah.
a man, the similar thing happened, you also wouldn't really get the type of coverage,
Yeah.
right? It's
Or indigenous man. That's
hey,
even
yo,
that's even
when,
crazier.
when was the
Yeah.
last time you heard about an indigenous man who went missing and people really cared? Woo.
It's
Never.
facts. It's unfortunate.
Never. It's always like historical things. It's always like, oh well, residential school. Never news now. Right?
Yeah. Crazy.
Like I do agree. Like it's almost like it's almost kind of engineered us to think like, oh, like even like study has shown like when you have like a boy child, right, like a baby, like a 2-year-old versus a girl, bro, the parents the parents will like either for the boy, the parents will literally drop him into the cradle or like into the bed, like more careless and more rough with him, whereas like in comparison to the girl, they're a lot more gentle and stuff, right? So like it's just like I think at the end of the day, it's like, oh well, like he'll deal with it, right? Like he'll find a way, right? So I don't know, but like it is fucked how majority of media and all these problems cater towards like more like the female side of things, right? And like you only ever see men on TV when it's about a crime or something that's like, you know, like assault, killings, murders, right? Where the guy's in the wrong, where it shows that the guy's like being aggressive or whatever. That's the only really like the big times where like, you know, guys are on like news and kind of like in the spotlight and shit.
Right, but that's like on the news, right? But if we're talking about just on TV, and like a lot of like the shows are hosted by like
Men,
middle age or older white men type, right?
That's not Steve Harvey.
So or Steve Harvey, you know, you could always be Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey hosts everything. I don't even know, man, but he's on Family Feud Africa. He was doing all type of shows in Africa.
Damn.
Yeah. Don't know how he even found the opportunity, but he's hosting everything there is. So yeah, I guess that's also true. But going back to what we were talking about, like, you know, even in a lot of like the emergency situation, just like women and children get priority, right? Like fundamentally, it just seems like the value of a man's life is just, you know, lesser in the general kind of consideration and perspective of the society, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the collective, especially a lot of people working in like the trades, because so much of that is men, like working those harder jobs that aren't as appealing. And those guys get really like everybody jokes about like construction workers, you know, even we do.
Like blue collar jobs in general.
Yeah. But those guys literally build the buildings that we're in, right? Mm-hmm. It's like society would not function without those construction workers at all.
Put some respect on them guys, man.
And then like so many people disrespect them. I mean, even I do.
Bro, this guy.
This guy's like, yeah.
Hey, bro. Hey, man. They're doing.
But you should respect them.
They're doing a great service. How do they always pull up to the bus smelling like beer every time, bro? Every time. I don't get it. It makes no sense. It's like.
I mean, a lot of times it's because they're drinking on the bus, you know.
Yeah,
I would
like
say
what the fuck?
That's
why y'all gotta do
salty.
that, bro? I'm just mega salty, bro. Come on, dog. I'm not trying to smell that, bro. I'm not trying to smell beer on the bus.
Beer, bro.
I don't know, man. Something about it. It's just the degeneracy of public drinking like that is just.
Hey, yo, public drinking should be illegal.
I don't know.
Oh God. Yo, you sipping wine on the beach? Arrested.
Oh, that's different, bro. That's different, dog.
Whoa, now that's different.
What's the difference here?
Oh, because that's something
sounds
you
like a
would
pleasant
do.
experience. The other one just sounds like you just couldn't wait to get home to drink a beer.
Damn.
Like,
okay, but
who says, "Oh yes, such an enjoyable beer on this fine bus"? Oh yes,
dude.
Some people enjoy being on the bus.
You drink beers on planes and trains. All right.
Well, who drinks them on planes? That sounds so trashy.
You drink hard liquor
on planes. Hard liquor's fine. I'd rather they drink hard liquor, to be honest.
Planes. People drink beers on planes.
I would rather they drink hard liquor on the bus. I'm gonna be honest. So I'm not drinking too much.
All right. We're now just getting into your preferences. All right.
All right, Lorenzo.
It would smell better. Everything would be better. They'd have a better time, I'm sure. They wouldn't get as fat. All around win-win.
Hey, yo, what do you have against fat people, bro?
Yeah.
Man, they're unhealthy, bro.
No. If it's a fat woman, you'd be like, oh my god, no, that's chill.
Dude.
Oh, a guy being fat? Nah, of course. The double standards
Lorenzo,
here, Lorenzo.
come
Come
on
on. A guy drinking on the bus? Okay. But a woman drinking on a bus? Oh, she's kind of cool. Oh, she drinks a beer?
I'm not
Oh,
gonna
she's
lie.
not like the other
I'm not
girls.
gonna lie, that might actually be my initial reaction,
No,
bro.
outta
Depends,
here.
bro. Depends.
Oh my god.
Depends on look. If it's just like a
Get
if
outta
if
here, bro.
she looks like the type of girl to be drinking beer on the bus, then I'd probably be like, oh, she must be related to a construction
Bruh.
worker.
See?
You know? But if it's,
This
if it's
type of
something
profiling.
unexpected,
Lorenzo.
This type of profile.
Lorenzo.
dude, too big brain, man. Too big brain.
Cancel this guy right now.
Bro. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, like, would you also complain if an indigenous person did
Yeah.
that, right? Knowing their
Just in
history and
general,
stuff?
anyone drinking on the bus, I'm very unfond of. It just seems so trashy to
Yeah,
me.
you've never drank on the
No.
bus. Any
No.
bus. A party bus.
The
a
party
regular
bus
bus.
doesn't count.
Oh, really? What's the difference between a party bus and a regular bus? They're both buses.
Yeah, but one's for partying, one's for not partying.
Yeah. Okay, what if you're on a party bus, but you're not there to party? You're there because it's the only transportation you can
Yeah,
have.
it's only.
Or are you gonna
commute.
get annoyed?
Then I think you gotta go get some alcohol so you
Are
can
you
party.
gonna be annoyed?
Nah, bro. Then use it as transportation, but you try your best to party on the way.
I'm saying, man, as
All
long
right.
as they're not disturbing
Then
the
what-
peace and getting other people's
That's true.
business, there's no
Exactly.
problem with someone just drinking on the bus for me.
I guess my piece is just very
Yeah.
sensitive. I don't know.
Oh, yo, your piece. Yo. Come on, you can't be saying
do you
that.
mean?
Man's got caught.
What do you mean?
Yo, man really said my piece be real sensitive. Careful with my piece.
I can't believe you
Like,
didn't
he's
catch
easily
that,
offended.
Lorenzo.
What is that? What do you mean?
Oh. You know what you mean.
I don't know if you guys are trying to get at the pieces in like a gun or pieces in like my penis.
What?
I don't know. I don't know.
Your piece is in your penis.
They literally just start with like the same syllable. That is the only. That is literally like the only.
No,
You
you've
never
never
heard of
heard.
that?
You've never
No.
heard. Oh wait, this is Ontario.
Okay,
It's
okay,
different.
Oh, that's an
must be-
Ontario
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
What?
I guess it
Peace
is.
means penis in Ontario.
Hey, yo, peace means a lot of
Peace
things,
does mean
bro.
a lot.
But apparently, your piece is quite sensitive.
Well, it's good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
I was wondering what the
We
fuss was
love
about.
a
I'm
good
like, whoa.
pee joke.
So wait, peace can mean penis in
Oh.
Ontario?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never heard of that here. Maybe I'm just under a rock or something. I don't know, but
Maybe.
first I've heard of it.
It's gotta go around, go up to guys and be, hey, nice piece you got there, and see if they know what you mean.
I don't know, come visit Ontario. Do that. Yo, downtown Hamilton.
Oh
bro.
yeah, that will surely be a great time for me.
Yeah, Barn Street.
Oh yeah.
Barn Street at night.
Oh.
Yeah, there's only two things that can happen.
I think
I don't
guess
think
what
you
both of
would
those
want
are.
either.
Both are not good.
Oh, it's funny. That's really good.
But yeah. Yeah, so what were we
I
talking
cannot
about
remember.
before Lorenzo's
We're
piece?
talking about him
And the
not
beer?
liking people drinking beer on the bus.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so about that, we bring facts back. Yeah, apparently majority of guys will drink and like abuse drugs either like regularly or
Hell
often,
yeah. Oh
especially
no, that's
teen
not it.
boys. They will often do that to combat their feelings of loneliness, depression, and repressed feelings in general.
Do you know what the
So like
biggest problem
here,
in the world is? Throwback to Raymond. but almost but like
what?
what? How long has it been now? Like 4 or 5 years,
At
four and a
least,
half
yeah.
years, something like that. He said to us, the biggest problem in the world is loneliness.
Is that what he said?
Loneliness. He said it.
Dude, visionary,
Man
Bro,
said
man.
it. Man told
man
us.
was-
Man told
yeah.
us.
He saw it, bro. He saw the vision, bro. He saw the vision.
Yo, man's the next prophet, bro. He's the Messiah.
He's in Dubai right now.
Really crazy, bro. He's in Dubai.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Stone's throw away from Israel, man. Maybe he is the Messiah.
maybe he is.
Yeah, he's traveling across, spreading messages.
He's telling teen boys about how the biggest problem in the world is loneliness.
Maybe he's still looking for baby Picasso.
I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I think for guys like it's definitely a huge issue because you see a lot of guys like like at the end of the day like a lot of guys seek companionship whether it ends up being good or not, right, for them. And so but they deal with it anyways due to the fact that they do have companionship, right?
Yeah.
So like it definitely is a problem, but it also like who's screaming,
I'm pretty sure that's
bro?
from you.
Yeah.
That's
I
not
heard it on my end.
I heard it on my end.
Take off your headphones right now, bro.
Yeah. I think it's gotta be from you, man.
Give it a second.
No, I think it's George.
Huh. Oh my goodness, I think people are in the parking lot. I did not think that would be me.
Whoa.
I did not
who
think
would've
that
guessed?
would be me.
Bro, I was like, yo, people screaming. Who's closest to campus right now? Close to Halloween.
Yeah,
That's true.
it would be me.
But yeah, shit's fucked. And like, the problem is like it's not being addressed oftentimes enough. And like to think about it, that's just like regular, like that's just like, I guess like regular like society, like that's like the norms, right? But like when you take those norms and like you see how it impacts different cultural groups or different like minority groups and communities, it's a lot worse for them as well. So like that's crazy, man. Like it's fucked.
Yeah, I think a big reason of that is just kind of how the kind of, what do you call it, the dialogue, the discussion that is happening is so much about the power and privilege that men have, and there's definitely so much truth to that, and there's definitely so many kind of implications and kind of problems that causes, especially for people not fitting, not having that essentially, right? So I think that's it's a huge thing that, and in some ways that kind of makes this problem that we're talking about even bigger, because for those men who don't really quite have like the same so-called power and privilege that society basically just assume everyone just would have, and to a certain extent that you're gonna have it just because say that you're a woman, right? Then the extent would be like you don't have any, right? But the power difference between one man and other man could be massive, right? And say that you're someone who have let's say you're a man with very little power, and I feel like that probably would, make what do you call it? Contribute to the problem that we're talking about now, right? What will probably make them question their masculinity and maybe seek out other ways of dealing with those feelings, for example.
Yeah, it reminds me of like a lot of animal hierarchies, a lot of like social animal hierarchies. Because like if you take a monkey who's not the top G in his pack or whatever, and he's like maybe on the bottom end, you see similar things happening to that monkey. You know, when he's not top G monkey, he gets depressed. He feels like shit. His testosterone just literally isn't as high, and then all of a sudden, so some of them have the potential to just pop off one day, kill top G monkey, and then become top G monkey for themselves, right? And then they change, and it's like how they're perceived in their social hierarchy, or how they perceive themselves in that social hierarchy, has such an effect on the organism. To say that it wouldn't happen to humans is just crazy. It's like obviously going to happen, and then if that's obviously true, then I feel like there just has to be more discussions about it, like with the masculinity thing that we're talking about, right? Just like how are those expectations affecting individuals and whatnot, right? So yeah, this is what it reminded me of.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Like, like everyone's heard the saying, boys will always be boys, right? That, like, and it's also like, it's almost expected of guys to act and be certain ways due to them just being guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like a lot of people blame the aggression and like the things on like, oh well, like, yeah, I do agree it's biological, testosterone difference, but at the same time, like if you let your hormones control you and tell you you have bigger issues. It's not just the hormones
like,
itself,
yeah,
right?
no, like you can take somebody with like a super high level of testosterone and they could be a complete saint, like wouldn't lay a finger on anybody. But then you take somebody else who's already aggressive with pretty normal levels of testosterone, you jack them up with testosterone, they're crazy aggressive. So, yeah, the hormones by themselves don't explain everything. It's a lot to do with like environment and like epigenetic changes and whatnot, things like that.
And the saying that boys will be boys is just terrible for everyone, right? Because on one end, it's just a very dumb excuse.
Yeah, I think it depends on the situation.
For the type of behavior, and then on the flip side, for guys, it's just saying, okay, so what? The expectation just guys have no self-control at all, right? So that's also just right. So it's bullshit on both sides, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just a very dumb saying.
Oh yeah, it can be applied way too generally.
Exactly.
I mean, there's certain scenarios where I kind of see it, like for example with puppies or whatever, right? I kind of think of it as puppies always being puppies because they like to play rough sometimes, and it's really important that they get to do that because it's through that process of playing rough and figuring out stuff, that's how they learn how to play and where to like draw physical boundaries. So if they hurt one of their litter mates, unless they're like pit bulls and they're fucking crazy, then they'll stop and they'll like tone it back and they'll learn how to play kindly with each other. But if you take a dog who doesn't get that opportunity to socialize, they don't develop those same skills in that natural environment. If they don't get to be a puppy, then when they grow up, they're not going to know how to play, at least in some cases, they won't know how to play with other dogs. Then they'll play way too rough and they'll hurt the other dogs, right? And by that point, it's kind of more like solidified behavior, so they're always going to play rough. They won't learn how to play nice. So, like, in certain behaviors, when, like, if I see, like, two boys in my class being stupid or whatever that I'm coaching, as long as they can cut it out and stop, then it's like I kind of just like, okay, well, it's just boys being boys a little bit to an extent. If it's something that's inappropriate, I'm not like it's totally inappropriate, and then they got to learn that it's bad. Then I don't obviously say that, right? It's just there's certain behaviors that it's like that's just kind of them being boys.
And that is actually, I know I like to talk about this a lot, but it does definitely relate to the problem. Like the problem exists today relating to that concept also relates to just kind of the way our environment is built, like literally the physical environment, right? Like people in single single family housing zoning places in these suburbs, right? That's very isolating. The amount that people, like children, early teen, growing up in a very important stage of their life, it's very isolating for them, and they have very little interaction with the society and with other people on their own, especially, right? It's very sheltered, and a lot of people are just kind of stuck at home. And obviously social media and all these screens and all of that, they don't help, right? Video games, Netflix, spending all the time with those things, they don't help. But a huge part of that is the way that these areas are literally built in places where, kids would actually be on the streets, in the parks or whatever, playing with each other, and they could do that freely, independently. They're able to get to their schools and the local, I don't know, community centers or whatever by themselves easily. They're able to go through the puppies type of thing where they actually interact with each other and play with each other and have those type of social interactions, right? And obviously learn from that, grow from that, and that's missing. Right, that's one of the reasons. That's a problem, and I think that's one of the problems. One of the reasons why, like in the U.S., you see more school shootings and stuff like that. Right? Like, how are people getting to that point and feeling those ways?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like
it's also I feel like a lot of the times people are saying, oh well, like these behaviors, these like concepts of masculinity are learned, right, through society and stuff, but like realistically it's taught to them, right? If you're constantly like being told certain things, you're going to like that's teaching you, whether you believe it or not. Let's say, like example being like coaches for any sport, right? Especially team sports like hockey, football, like soccer, all of those. A lot of these kids don't have, like, a lot of them tend to, like, a lot of kids in general don't have like fathers, right? Especially in certain types of communities. So being the coach that you are, you become that father figure. You become the person
Lorenzo,
they look up to, the role model.
Your father figure to those kids.
Well, hold on. I'm running on like 2 hours of sleep. Sorry, what?
Man, you gotta fix your sleep. It's
not actually 2 hours. It's not actually 2 hours.
God.
I just woke up early today. I had a good sleep, but I woke up like at 4 in the morning, so that's really early for me. But yeah, sorry. What was the question again? What was the statement?
Coaches being father figures.
No. So.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so like a lot of these kids in certain communities, they don't have like fathers, right? Single mother families. So coaches become their father figures, their role models, the leaders growing up, right? People they look up to. And when you're when you're huddling and your coach is saying, "You dumb fuck, you got like be more aggressive," like, things like that, you're going to learn that, okay, that's what's right. That's what's, that's what I'm about to be. Man up, so like you also have that where a majority of these, especially like if you take a look at the amount of, charges that high schoolers, like high school football players, especially like sports athletes have, especially in the States, there's a lot of cases where they assault, they commit crimes, and like, it's just horrible. And that's way too many, so like you have that being a problem.
I forget which episode it was. I don't think you were there, but Lorenzo and I were talking about something similar to this. And one thing I was talking about is how, nowadays there's so much information available to us that I think teenagers and older, there is absolutely no reason why you have to be a direct product of your environment, right? There's so many things you could learn about other places, other time periods, other cultures, other lifestyles, different ways of making decisions, different aspects to consider, and just philosophical ideas. Lorenzo, you like to talk about a lot of the neuroscience and the actual, biology behind a lot of things as well, right? A lot of these information are very beneficial for people to understand and could really help them develop a different perspective, and their decision making and how they live a day-to-day life could be vastly different than just what it would be if they were a direct product of their environment, learning only from those things that they've actually experienced personally, hands-on, right? I feel like obviously kids, that's much more difficult to do, and so much of kind of things that ingrain in you where you have to put a lot of effort to unlearn and grow out of happen when they're kids. And what Lorenzo and I were talking about in that episode a lot was also about how, some people in certain environments, they just don't have the perspective. They just haven't seen anything else, right? And that's all they know, right? And it kind of makes the problems that exist there worse and allows this problem to continue to exist, because there just hasn't been new perspectives in their community. They just haven't brought those things into their lives, and they certainly haven't shared those information with other people in their community and kind of help other people not be direct products of the environment and continue those detrimental behaviors and traits that exist there.
Yeah, like I think a good example is a rural type of places, so like more countryside, right, where the masculinity, I guess like type of responsibilities and the concept of it is a lot different, right? You gotta do it's similar yet different as well. So like you gotta do like the dirty works and stuff like that. You gotta like do all these you're a bitch if you move out of the small town. If you go to the city, you're a bitch if you want to study in academics, right? Right? Like why are you
you think you're better
you're
than
smart?
me?
You're a loser. Yeah, literally. So in those terms, that's why certain statistics are a lot different, because I guess your community and those type of environments reinforce these type of problematic behaviors onto each other. If you've known your everyone to be really right wing, or it's just that's how you perceive the world to be, right? So then you go out there, you're like, oh no, well that's wrong, that's not true, right? So that's kind of that. Yeah, I do agree.
Yeah, no more living for the culture. We ain't nobody's slaves. Such a good song.
Bars.
It's true though. It's a lot of the time the culture doesn't serve you. You gotta look at it and see it. You gotta see what's actually doing to you and your community.
Yeah, and it takes a lot to start questioning and to actually because when everyone around you is constantly telling you a certain way, it's hard, not because not because it's just, I guess it takes a lot to think outside of it, right? To really question why is this how it's supposed to be.
The social norms that exist,
right?
how normalized these things are, right? It is very difficult to start even questioning it and then really look into it.
Yeah. And I think it's important for people to even think about the concept rather than start questioning it. You have to be able to know that it is a concept. You have to know the main I guess what it is first, right? Before you're okay, then what is it, right? Because everyone's heard all masculinity, right? All societal pressures, but what? Like, what are they, right?
Yeah.
So you have to know about it first before
It's
you
very
even
much
start
George
questioning it.
Orwell type stuff where you need the language to be able to have kind of the thoughts about it.
Yeah, definitely. Because like, if you really don't have the language, or you don't have, I guess, the I guess like the ability to like go in depth with your thoughts, then like you're not going to understand why you feel certain ways, why it affects you, why, especially if you lack the knowledge of different perspectives as well. That's definitely a big one, right? So I don't know, I think it does take a lot for someone to just start to think about it, or even like
Right. And
acknowledge it.
it definitely doesn't help that it just doesn't really get talked about. Like, really, the struggles that men actually face, right? Because the expectations that a lot of men either put on themselves or feel like other people put on them or whatever it is. But there is a lot of expectations that a lot of men feel for whatever reasons, and a lot of those things they just don't really get talked about. I recently got back on Instagram because the people in my program decide that sometimes you're just gonna have a group chat on IG. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. And also I'm like, I'm doing a master of media.
Yeah, kind of.
I'm gonna go into communications, maybe digital marketing. Maybe I should have an Instagram. that
That's
might
pretty good.
make sense to do. But yeah, I don't follow any brands, right? And I wasn't liking any photos. But on my explore page or whatever it is called, but the one that shows you all these different new things, the posts from like people you don't follow and whatever, a lot of that, it just shirtless guys, and a lot of them are very, very unrealistic. Like even if you're, you know, sauced up, it's still pretty unrealistic. So I'm just saying, man, like the stuff that people will see, especially if you're like impressionable teenager or preteen or whatever, and they're all on, Instagram and stuff like that. So, they're gonna see that type of stuff. And obviously, we know that recently you've seen a lot of like teens getting on some pretty dangerous substances in the bodybuilding scene, right? Like, and this is one of the direct reasons behind it, along with others, I'm sure. But these expectations that exist just from everyday type of things that could be subtle, that could be stuff you don't even think about. Like, there has a lasting impact on a lot of people.
Yeah, like I definitely agree. Like it is a lot. Like, because I feel like it doesn't really take much until you start questioning your own masculinity. You see yourself, and like you're constantly being put down like by other guys, right? And like these types of behaviors happen a lot from like groups of men, right? Rather than like like with like girls or something. Like it's yeah. So like yeah, there's this quote I have through one of the documentaries. It's like a lot less about like masculinity is a lot less about lone wolves and monsters, like like from I guess like all the crime rates and stuff, who fail to conform to society's norms, than it is about too many men, like in a sense over conforming to norms and ideals of manhood out of fear of not being seen as a man, right? And like so that hit me because earlier, like I was mentioning about the psychiatrist, right, who questioned like hundreds of violent criminals. The all of them, felt and said, because they felt ashamed, humiliated, or disrespected as men. So like, you kind of get the sense of, well, like I'm not going to let you do this. Like, you ever have like guys kind of just be like, oh, you're gonna take that, bro? Like, I wouldn't take that, dude.
Personally,
Like, you
I
better.
wouldn't.
Personally, I would have fucked him up, yeah, but that's just me.
If he
This
swims
is just me,
first, bro,
man.
he's
That's
I'm
just
knocking
me,
him out, man.
'cause
Unless he's red, bro.
All I see is red.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So like, you kind of get that like type of like mindset, right? And like the kind of like what the consequences of being constantly like being taught that, and like things like that. And the last quote I really like actually is it's that like we've constructed an idea of masculinity, like in, I guess, Western culture or America, that doesn't give young boys a way to feel secure in their masculinity. So we make them go prove it all the time, right? So when you're constantly questioning yourself, oh my God, like, am I man enough? Am I big enough? Am I aggressive enough? Am I, like this, right? Am I tall enough even, right?
Right. That's
So
a big
like,
thing
and
for a
that's a
lot of
big
people.
thing, right? For a lot of people. And when you're constantly being questioned by other people and you question yourself, you're going to try your best to prove that you are masculine, you are that type of, constructed norm in any way possible, right? Because that's all you really have,
I see
right?
And this fits into kind of a larger problem with people. Like, Raymond says the biggest problem in the world is loneliness. Oh, I've told you what I think the biggest problem in the world multiple times on this, and that is that too many people don't really have a clear understanding of themselves and their desires, right? And I think like on this topic, it definitely ties back to that, because masculinity and the idea of being a man, it's a part of someone's identity, right? And really, when you don't have a very strong and secure self-identity, like something like that, you could really get caught up in and be like, oh, I'm a man, right? Like that all of a sudden becomes a huge part of your identity and a huge thing, and then it's like, but you're also not securing that, right? So that leads to further problems, right? So I know that when people have one aspect of their identity that they are actually secure and they really hang on to that, and that in itself, I think, is really only just a coping mechanism. And really there's still a lot of things to be addressed there, right? Like you see people who all their identity is just like one thing, really, like, oh, like all they do is just go to the gym, or like all they are is gay or whatever, and like that whole thing, that whole culture, that is just everything for them. Like the same thing could be like ethnicity, or it could be their profession, like any one aspect of identity someone could get really caught up in and make it their whole thing. And that, to me, in itself, I already am not a big fan of, because like I said, I think that's a bit of a coping mechanism, and there's a lot more to them that they really gotta kind of figure out. But when you don't really even have one thing like that you're actually secure in and could really feel like yourself, or at least just one aspect of yourself, when you don't even have that, then it really leads to some serious problems. And as we've discussed, there are a lot of people struggling with that and facing pretty serious problem, leading to them making decisions that definitely have very drastic consequences.
Just give them
and
drugs,
not even
man.
just consequences to themselves, but also to other people, to their community, and all that.
There's a specific protein that they find in like every single school shooter's brain every time, without doubt. I forget, it's like tacky something, whatever. But there was this one drug that was on like pre-medical trials or whatever, and apparently it almost completely diminishes all the aggression caused by that protein, and that protein spikes specifically when people are like isolated for long periods of time. And there's one drug that can like pretty much completely it just gets rid of the side effects of it. It just gets rid of the negative downsides of having so much protein, so much of that protein in your body. And then they were trying to get into like pharmaceutical trials, but the problem is some research group, so the idiots, bro, decided to take it to pre-med trials for schizophrenia instead, and it's got like no big effect on schizo. So then it got rejected for that. And now companies just won't take a risk on it because like getting it to that point and then getting it rejected for the use, it's like, it's tough, man. It's so expensive. It's like millions and millions of dollars. So even though it could be very effective for like treating like loneliness and social isolation, it's not gonna happen because big pharma is not about it.
It's a huge
Terrible
problem
system.
with big pharma. Yeah, the system it just takes forever and it's crazy expensive.
Yeah, I think. I mean, like, but even then, like,
No,
that's not
it's just
going to
one
complete.
small thing,
Though,
yeah.
like, it will help.
Generally speaking, with these problems, relying on pharmaceuticals is just not a good approach.
No, that's not doesn't address the root cause.
Yeah, and like you don't want it
Yeah.
to get to that point, right? When you get to that point, it's unpredictable, right? Who knows if they're going to seek for help, take the help if suggested, or rather just continue on with what they plan to do and like things like that, right? It's hard to say. So like I think a lot of the problems, like I think a lot of the problem stems from just, I guess, the lack of discussion about it in general, right? And like the lack of, I guess, like acknowledgement of these problems, rather than like, oh, like I guess, like, I don't know, no one really talks about it. Yeah, like even though majority of violent crimes are committed by men, no one speaks, about men, right? No one says, okay, well, you see here the connection between all these, like, a lot of them are by men, if not majority. No, instead they're like, oh, well, like they blamed guns, right? They blame every other things rather than like the actual issue itself. What causes these people to go to that extent, right? So you have that, and you have like certain killers, right? You have certain school shooters. They have like diaries, or they tape themselves right beforehand. They record themselves, and literally majority, if not all of them, they say the same shit. I'm tired of being seen as weak. I'm going to show everyone. I'm tired of like all these things, and it's kind of scary. Like, literally all the reasonings are related to one another, to the same thing. So it's like, well, you wanna deal with this problem that's big in America, right? School shooters and stuff like that. Then deal with this problem that's causing it, right? It's not guns, right? A lot of people own guns in America, but not there. Like, it's not not a lot of people like will
And
shoot
I
up
brought this up as
schools,
well
and like,
whenever this discussion is happening. Just like, there are other places with similar problems, and they have much, stricter gun control. And what you end up seeing a lot more is knife violence, right? You see a lot more of that. What else do you see more? You see a lot more people driving into crowds, or that type of it's not going to be a shooting. It's not going to be a school shooting, but you are going to get people going to schools potentially and do a, mass stabbing, right? You are going to have people driving into crowds with their vehicles. Like, it's going to manifest in some type of like violent against the community and society. So that's like one of the biggest problem I have with just saying like guns are the problem. Like, they're obviously not. Right, like everyone knows the root cause is not just the guns, and what I've been saying is just like the way it manifests could also be manifested in ways without guns. So you really just gotta look at the root cause and really try to figure something out.
100%.
Yeah, right. And like there was a big thing in the States, right, where the biggest like gun guy or whatever, like advocate or owner or whatever, he was blaming like media, right, video games, movies, and the big guy in Hollywood was like, nah, it's the guns, man, it's the regulations, it's too easy. but realistically, like it's they have a little to do with it, but majority of the time, it's like it's society, right? Majority of the time, it's how like it's how present these type of stereotypes, these type of I guess ideas are, and how it's reinforced onto generation to the next, right? So like that's why there hasn't been much change in the past few hundred years, even thousands of years. You see similarities, like almost exact, type of relations of these like masculine traits, because it's not ever mentioned ever, right? And even then, like when you talk about video game, there's zero like correlation between like video games and causation of violence. They've done studies, and there's no correlation at all. It's more so like it's more so due to people's environments, right?
Yeah.
Like we talked about earlier, like
Yeah.
how they're taught these things, right? Their schools, where they are majority of the time. And I feel like a lot of times people use, like people play or like people watch a lot of media or video games as a way to escape, right? As a way to feel rewarded. When you do well in a video game, you feel like you've achieved something, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't feel like you achieved anything at all, right? So you have all these other issues, and like why are you blaming guns in video games and like media when it's literally just like I guess like the pressure caused by other people, communities, right? It's everywhere. There's no place where it's like nah man, don't worry about it, dude, it's chill. Like it's always like, yo, you gotta stick up for yourself, man. You gotta pull yourself up by the bootstraps, you know. You got to be a
The
man, you
only
gotta be
time
successful.
it's chill, don't worry
Economic.
about it, is when you start believing that yourself, right? And the thing is, how do you get to that
Exactly.
point, right?
Exactly. So I feel like people need to promote this idea, right? Or even promote the concept of thinking this way rather than, being like, because you see a lot of people blame men for a lot of violent stuff and things like that, but you don't see a lot of people say,
Yeah.
how can we help that? How can we prevent that? How can we, it's always, well, men do this. Oh, a lot of men statistically do this. No, it's how can we prevent this? How can we take a look at those type of men and see the similarities, and how can we prevent that, for other men going forward?
I see it.
Well said. Is there
Very well
anything else
said.
you want to touch on before we move to Island?
Thanks.
No?
Yeah, name's Raymond. Cool dude. Giga chat. Thanks for
Yes,
listening
sir.
to my
It's very
TED
good.
Talk,
It's
guys.
very good. Very detailed.
Very good.
Very informative. Very enlightening.
Yeah. Good episode. Great discussion.
But yeah, that's
All right.
that's
What
pretty
about
it.
highlights, guys? How about you
Highlights.
start, Lorenzo?
Well,
Tell us about Starbucks.
Sawbucks. Went to Sawbucks yesterday. That was fun. It's a nice little pub. I like the ambient there. The ambience. The wings are pretty good. Price is okay, I think. 49 cents a wing. It is what it is. I'll take what I can get, Poutine was alright. Rum and Coke, of course, is always classic. Too good. Too
Classic Lorenzo.
good. Yeah, that was just a fun time. Other highlights, handstands are getting more consistent. Even more consistent than they already were, so that's always good. Hand balancing, goated. Oh, and the muscle ups are feeling so easy, bro. Oh my god, bro. Like 2-3 muscle ups in a row, like nothing, bro. It's like not even a challenge. It's
Yeah.
like, it feels good, feels good. Yeah, those are the highlights for me. What about you, gentlemen?
No highlights, Raymond?
I don't know. I started work.
Which one?
Found a job. No, it's so when I got this interview, like I basically got the job on the interview, but I was literally like a day after I was offered other jobs that I had applied before previously. That I'm not even really qualified for this job. I got anyways. I don't really have any experience in any of the jobs I was offered, but
Too good.
so for this one, it's basically like hosting, right? For like it's a pretty nice restaurant. It's like a very like formal, very like I guess elegant, like classy Chinese cuisine. So like I'm a host there. So I start my training basically next week, or literally this coming week, and then like further training like second week. Yeah. I tried on the interview. I tried to see if I could go further. You know, get like a server-esque type of position, because I know they make bare tips, even hosts and hostess. But yeah, and then the guy's like, it's pretty tough. With you not having the experience, you could work up to there as a host. I'm like, okay,
just be their manager, please.
Yeah, can I actually take
your
your
I think I'm a
position,
better
actually,
fit.
Yeah, and then like literally right after that, I got offered like, oh no, I have another interview, I think, for
That's nice.
Wednesday, which is like retail, like sales, and like I forgot whether it's like sales assistant or sales team lead that I applied for. I don't know at this point. Also got another one from Rogers and Telus,
Don't do that.
but I don't know, man. I think I'd rather just chill with this one, but I'll go to the interview anyways.
Yeah.
Just for experience. But
Yeah, I see it.
yeah,
I see the vision.
but yeah,
It's pretty good.
I think that's pretty much it.
Well, for me, the highlight, one would be I'm going to my reading week, so it's going to be nice having some time off from classes. Yeah, there is quite a bit to do, but at the same time, I've always been on top of things, and having this extra time will make it even easier. Other highlight would be Friday night. I was at one of my friend's Halloween party, and that was pretty fun. I gotta say, I gotta get more Latino friends, man.
Yeah?
You know, when people put on Bad Bunny, someone actually sing with me.
Oh, that's facts. Yeah, that sounds wavy. I see it. I'm just not
But
the
it was a
singing
good
type.
bonding time with some other people on program, since quite a few people went over to her place.
Nice. Sounds like a fun time.
Yeah. Oh, other highlight I have to say is that I've been getting live music pretty much on the weekly, so that's been
nice.
awesome. It's been awesome. Yes.
Oh
sir.
damn!
I see it.
Because I know different places that have live music, and I also know that there are these free concerts that happen in different places in town or at the university, and I've been going to them. It's been very, very good. I really like that type of stuff. So big highlight.
Nice. Yeah. I just picture a mariachi band, like every day you wake up, it's just playing in your living room.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'll have to hire a full-on mariachi band to what do you call them? The live-in people. It's like those chefs that like stay at your house. That
I don't know
type
what
of
the title
deal.
is for it. Yeah.
Yeah, but you have that, but for a mariachi band.
There you go.
What a play that be.
That would be pretty good.
All right. That's pretty good. All right. I think that's going to be it from us. So thank you for listening.